y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Sharaya Maurice and I'm a homeschooling mama to 3 kiddos ages 3, 5, and 7. And today I'm answering one of the most frequently asked questions that I get, and that is, are we still doing classical conversations? So if you're interested in hearing more about that, then hit that thumbs up button and let's get right into it. So if you watched my homeschool update video on our last homeschool year, then you might have noticed that I did not mention doing any kind of CC, classical conversations, if you don't know what that is, work in the basics whenever I basically just let everything else go and did reading, writing, and math. I said nothing about classical conversations, and that is because I did not do classical conversations at all. And so basically, in a nutshell, the short answer to the question, are we still doing classical conversations, is no, we're not. However, I will say that I still plan to do classical conversations, but I'm not doing it fully like it's our whole complete curriculum. With all of the curriculum that I choose to use, I take what works for us and I leave what doesn't work for us. And so I don't consider myself a full-on classical conversations homeschooling family. I have never been a full Charlotte Mason style, a full classical style, a full all the other styles out there. I take what works for us and I leave what doesn't, and I call that our homeschool style. So with classical conversations, I am saying that we are still doing it, but I'm not recreating classical conversations community and making that a part of our daily, weekly homeschool rhythm, if that makes sense. So I've shared before how you can do classical conversations at home without a community. I will link that video. It's one of my most popular ones because oftentimes people don't realize that you can do classical conversations without a community. But what you need to understand is that classical conversations without a community is simply a curriculum. It's a curriculum that you follow. And like I said, with all of the curriculum that I choose to use in our family or for our family, I take what works for us and leave what doesn't. And so that doesn't mean that I'm using every part of classical conversations curriculum. I am only taking the stuff that really works for us, that we latch onto and that we get. So what are the things that I am keeping or that I'm using regularly in our homeschool using the classical conversations curriculum? First of all is the timeline. We always review the timeline. And while I didn't mention it as part of our homeschool basics that I made sure to do every day in my last homeschool update video, that is something that I regularly play. I don't have a specific schedule. Okay, Mondays we're going to list a timeline, Tuesdays we're going to do history, Wednesdays we're doing math. I don't have anything like that. It's very flexible, and sometimes it even comes down to if I remember to do it in the first place. And so I can say that at least a dozen or so times throughout the homeschool year, probably more than that, probably, I wouldn't say once a week, maybe once a month, 2 times at most, we will listen to the timeline song. And my kids pick up songs really well, so for them at this point, it's just listening to review, not to learn the song. And that includes all 3 of my kids. Even my youngest, my 3-year-old, she knows the timeline song. And so I feel like just knowing that, memorizing that song and having that basis really sets them up for a head start in their history studies. And for history, if you've been following along with my homeschool journey and my kids for any length of time, then you'll know that we have picked up Ambleside Online, and that's how we do our history. We read our Ambleside Online readings for we're on year 1 still, because last year we started year 1 and we didn't finish it. Actually, it might be year 2 now that I think about it. I just do the next thing. That's my motto in our homeschool, is just do the next thing. So if we finish a reading portion here, I'm going to read the next thing on the list and go from there. And if I discover that that reading material is not something that works for us, then I will find a replacement and we'll just keep doing the next thing and going to the next chapter and so on and so forth. So I'm really laid back on all of that kind of stuff now, and I've had to be, and that's also kind of been a stretch in my faith, just in the homeschool process in general. Before I even started homeschooling, I've always known that I was going to homeschool. So I researched and I decided I'm going to go, classical all the way. That's the best method and that's the way it's going to be. And then I actually started homeschooling. And you learn so much. Like, just homeschooling in general is a learning experience in and of itself. And it's not one size fits all. It's one size for one family, and it fits how you make it fit. And so I discovered that there were all these different kind of, homeschooling models and methods and all that kind of stuff. And you don't have to put yourself into one box, into one category and live that out perfectly. That's just it's not realistic. It's not how we were designed in life in general. And so I have really broadened my views on flexibility in homeschool and trusting that they will get what they need to get when they need to get it, and the Lord will help them understand it, and they'll ultimately get it and it'll click. And so I just wait for those moments, and it's fun to see that I, pour in all this effort into it and it doesn't seem like it's flourishing. And then one day suddenly they've gotten it. And so that can't be something that you force, and it can't be something that you expect each and every day. They're going to learn this, they're going to get it, and we're going to move on to the next thing. That's not how it works. I'm sorry to say that you can't plan it that much and that detailed, because it's just not going to happen. And so it's been a stretch to just trust that they're not doing their regular everyday review of these specific subjects in classical conversations memory work. They're not doing it every day. It wasn't happening, and it's still not happening. And I'm trusting that that's okay, and that ultimately all of the material that I give them will click and they will get it and we'll move on. And so I really prioritize the timeline for classical conversations. I really prioritize the math memory work and those songs, skip counting from 1 to 12 or 13, I think. And then the math facts and things like that, like liquid measurements and all that kind of stuff. Those have been very helpful just in my own life, like teaspoons and tablespoons. Memorizing the equivalents has been so helpful just in my cooking. And I am 32 years old and just now getting that, and that has helped me. So if I can pick it up at 32 years old, then my children can pick it up any good old time that they want to, and they will get it. And so I'm just giving them the tools to get it sooner rather than later, if that's what they choose to do and if that's how their brain works and all of that. So I'm really just trusting their intelligence at this point to get what they need to get when they need to get it. As long as I'm doing my job and laying the groundwork, the foundation for them, then I trust that they're going to pick it up. So I keep coming back to that because that's so important to me now. The other thing that I prioritize in our classical conversations memory work is our history. Now, I will say that I have not done a very good job at reviewing the history sentences. I think that those songs that are in each cycle are so golden, and they're learning opportunities in and of themselves. And it's one of my goals to have my kids memorize all of those history songs, because history is very important to me. And I think that we can learn so much from history, but actually getting to the work and getting them to memorize those songs and going through it regularly in each cycle just hasn't really played out how I wanted. So that's something that I'm working on, and I plan to do better with that. But as far as all the other subjects, there's science, there's Latin, there's grammar or English, grammar rules and stuff like that. Those I've kind of put off. I'm not really focusing on memorizing those specific subjects. We have gone through 2 cycles, and they have at least been exposed to the material with all of those back when I was like really doing classical conversations every day, memorizing and reviewing and all of that stuff. They got 2 cycles in, and I'm thankful for that. And I do ultimately plan to go back, hopefully at some point. That's now, who knows what the future will hold. But I do want to go through and review those things again and expose them to some more science work and grammar and Latin. But sometimes in life, you just have to put some things to the side and get a reality check and realize that this is not going to work for me in this season of life, and hopefully I can pick it up later. And if I do, that's great. If I don't, it wasn't meant to be, and we learn and move on from there. So that is the long answer to a simple question: are we still doing classical conversations? So Long story short, yes and no is the answer. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on that little bell icon so that you can be notified of my newest videos, and I will see you in the next one.